I don't know what this is for sure, but I don't think it's a FRAP device. This cover was on this circuit. I got this years ago from someone who was clearing out a bunch of junk. They didn't know what it was for. This originally would have been an MXR phase 90. So that's an audio phase effect circuit originally. So somebody used this as a project box, apparently a buffer circuit, but there's nothing else. There's no power switch. But then when I took this apart, I saw this FRAP label, flat response audio pickup, and it says preamplifier for 3-dimensional transducer. So I don't have that, but basically a transducer, it would need a certain preamp. But I don't think that's what this is. So doing some research on this, I found an article in a 1979 magazine where they were describing how there's different pickups they made, including the 3-dimensional one. So it has 3 pickups to capture sound on 3 axes. So these would go inside acoustic instruments, whether it's a guitar or a wind instrument in an orchestra, something like that. And there would be an accompanying preamp that you plug it into. So when I saw this and I saw the word buffer, I wondered if it could be this. But for one thing, we have a red enclosure lid on an orange pedal. So when I look up both of these things, when I see pictures of this pedal, even the back end is orange. And I saw some listings like on Reverb for FRAP related things for sale. And I did see a red enclosure. So it's the same basic enclosure, but somebody, I think, took this lid from a real FRAP preamp and just put it on this custom homemade buffer project. Another clue, it's not a FRAP device. Both on these jacks and on the enclosure it says amp and guitar. But this is going to be just a pickup. It could be on any kind of instrument. And it may not be going to an amp. It could be going to some recording device input. So this sounds awfully specific. And although the FRAP products were around in the 70s, maybe this could have been an early prototype, handmade, but still, it's kind of a bit janky, but not out of the question. It does use an LF351 op amp though, which is a JFET input op amp, so it's going to have very high input impedance, like 1 tera ohm. The circuit itself will probably have some sort of input resistance to ground, whether it's several hundred K or a meg or 10 megs, and that will actually set the true input impedance. But in the article talking about this in general, these kind of transducers would want to see a high impedance input. So this is a weird mystery and a coincidence where the 2 different products here do similar tasks. I just don't think this is this, but I want to hook this up, put a sine wave into it because I don't have any actual proper setup for testing an acoustic pickup like this. But I want to see what this is doing because being a buffer, but it has no other controls. It has an internal 9-volt battery. It does have what looks like a gain setting potentiometer. So I'm wondering what kind of amplifying or attenuating this can do. Maybe I can still use this for something, but I probably want to salvage this enclosure. What I'd like to do maybe is remove these jacks and this circuit board, maybe put it aside, maybe a different enclosure. And I'd like to try and ultimately restore this to an actual phase 90 with my own circuit if I can get one working. But for now, I wonder how this thing works. So in this test setup, I have a 50 millivolt peak-to-peak sine wave at 1 kilohertz. I just chose 50 millivolts as a low-level signal, not knowing what kind of signals were expected on this. So I'm going to this 1/4-inch audio jack, clipping the input sine wave directly onto the pins. The breadboard was just too noisy with DuPont wires going all over the place. So the sine wave generator is clipped directly here. Then I can plug in a standard instrument patch cable to the input. The output is going to another one of those jacks, and the oscilloscope is clipped directly on those breadboard pins again. So 50 millivolts peak to peak in. The output of this buffer is 68 or something millivolts peak to peak. And this variable resistor is set at one extreme end. So when I start adjusting this pot, it kind of jumps. So there's the lowest increment I can seem to jump to. So it goes from about unity gain almost input to suddenly 200 millivolts peak to peak. So it's 4 times the 50 millivolts I put in. And if I keep going and keep scaling it down so we can see it, it starts clipping around 1.8 to 1.9 volts peak to peak, which is a lot of gain from starting with a 50 millivolt peak to peak in. So if I put this back down, it's around just over 500 millivolts peak to peak now, so it's about a 10 times gain. If I put more sine wave cycles on screen, I'm going to change the frequency of the input now. So we started at 1 kilohertz, and the scope is showing around 520 to 530 millivolts peak to peak. So right here at 20 hertz, we're down to around 100 millivolts peak to peak. At 100 hertz, we have around 300 millivolts peak to peak. And if I keep increasing, here we're at around 500 hertz, and we're back to that 520 or so millivolts peak to peak we saw at 1 kilohertz. I'm just going to increase now. 2 kilohertz, it's about the same. 5 kilohertz, same. I'll stretch the display out a bit. And I'm at 20 kilohertz now, the upper audio range, and 540 or so millivolts peak to peak. So it looks like this buffer has some low-end roll-off, which is probably by design so that you're not picking up too many low frequencies that you don't even really need for a musical instrument, and it helps keep it from being too muddy and things like that. I'm going to try testing what the input impedance is of the buffer. So I have a potentiometer here just set as a variable series resistor. So the sine wave signal generator is connected here. This is the input of the buffer, so we will see an input impedance to ground, and I have a scope probe right here. I know I'm putting in 500 millivolts peak to peak, so I want to adjust this variable resistor until I see half of that, 250 millivolts peak to peak at the input of the buffer, and that means I have created a voltage divider with 2 equal impedances. Then I can measure this variable resistor and see what it is, and that should be the input impedance. And as I touched the wiring, things changed, but we're around 500 millivolts peak to peak. Now I'm going to adjust the pot, try to trigger on this. So 240 something to 50 something millivolts peak to peak. If I come back to the circuit, turn off the signal generator, buffer, disconnect the pot. I should have set all this up in advance. I'll just lay this here. 195K. Well, after pulling this out of the enclosure and trying to figure it out, it took a while. I think this is what's going on. So we have a 9-volt single supply. We have an LF351 op amp, and it's in a non-inverting configuration, so the gain is going to be 1 plus R1 here, this feedback resistance, divided by, I'm calling this impedance 2, which is a 2K resistor and then 2 parallel capacitors to ground, 470 nano in parallel with 47 nano. So the gain is always going to be at least 1, and then it can get larger, and it's frequency dependent. So the first thing is, being a single supply, we need to take our input signal and bias it up halfway between 9 volts and ground at 4.5 volts. So we have a voltage divider with 2 39K resistors from 9 volts to ground, and the output of the voltage divider gives us the 4.5 volts, which is filtered by a 470 nano capacitor. And we're taking the 4.5 volts and connecting it to the input of the op amp through a 330K resistor. So now the incoming audio can swing above and below 4.5 volts. Directly on the input to ground is a 330K resistor, and then we have a series DC block 470 nano capacitor. So having both ends of the capacitor with a DC return path, it can help us eliminate clicks and pops as we connect things up. And I wrote here, it's hard to see, input impedance will be 330K in parallel with 330K, giving us 165K input impedance. Because looking at this for AC analysis, if we short circuit the capacitor and connect positive rails to ground, we have 330K in parallel with 330K. So that's what the input is going to see. And that's close to our practical input impedance measurement when we took a signal generator, variable resistor, in series with the input, and then we would have our input impedance to ground. So we adjust this resistor until the signal is half of its original amplitude, and that means whatever the resistance is here is the same as the input impedance. Similar to this voltage divider, two equal resistors, we get half of the original level. And skipping ahead to the output, we have another DC block capacitor, 47 nano, and a 620 ohm series. I wonder if they were trying to get this close to a 600 ohm nominal impedance, which is somewhat of an audio standard, depending what they were intending to plug this into. Now for the gain, the feedback resistance on this circuit has a fixed 560K resistor, and in parallel across that we have a 500K pot to set the gain. So we can change the feedback resistance from very small as the wiper resistance will let us short this out, up to a parallel resistance of around 264K. And with this other impedance to ground, a 2K resistor, and then these parallel capacitors, without doing exact calculations, at lower frequencies, these capacitors are going to look like a higher and higher impedance. So let's say we have a relatively low frequency, so these capacitors are going to act like a relatively high impedance right here. If this pot is set for a very low resistance, the gain would be a small number divided by a very big number. So the gain at a low frequency will be 1 plus some small number, which is 1. So basically at lower frequencies, we go toward unity gain. We're not trying to boost lower frequencies. So maybe they did that to help keep the signal from getting muddied up. And if the pot is set for the 264K resistance, we still have this number divided by a very large number, so it's still approaching unity gain. As frequency goes up, these capacitors look more and more like a short circuit, so we end up essentially having a 2K resistor to ground. So now let's say the pot is set for minimum resistance, call it 10 ohms. So at some higher operating frequency, the gain would be 1 plus a small number over 2K, which is still a small number, a gain of 1. But when the pot is at the maximum 264K, the gain would be 1 plus 264K divided by 2K, or 1 plus 132. So a very large gain we can get out of this at normal operating frequencies. And that's basically what we were seeing. We put in a relatively small peak-to-peak sine wave, 50 millivolts or so, and adjusting the pot, we were able to get at almost 2 volts peak-to-peak before it started distorting. So now I have a better idea what's on this board, and the circuit seems to function relatively well. So now that I have this all disassembled, I'm thinking I'll keep this aside. It's a self-contained project with input and output jacks. So whether I keep it like this or put it in some other enclosure, it works, so there's no sense in trying to salvage some parts out of it. And maybe if I can clean this up, maybe I can build a phase 90 clone circuit and put that in here and restore this to its original purpose. So I think I managed to turn one weird unit into two salvageable components.